Monica Kelsey with Safe Haven Baby Boxes. Thanks for joining me this morning. And I wanted to go back in time and ask you where this all started. Where did you get the idea for the Safe Haven Baby Boxes?
Well, Safe Haven Baby Boxes was actually birthed out of my own story of being abandoned as an infant. 2 hours after my birth mom gave birth to me, she abandoned me. And so I took my pain and I took my story and I turned it into something that could help other women, that my birth mother didn't have all those years ago. And now we have a national movement across America where I'm able to walk alongside these parents if they choose to allow me to. And it feels like it gives me a little bit of peace knowing that, I can be there for a parent in their weakest moment. Like no one was there for my birth mom when she was in hers.
How did you discover your origin story?
I actually found her by accident, surprisingly, but that's a very long story of how I tracked her down. But I actually found her by accident and contacted her. And believe it or not, the first thing that she said when she answered the phone when I called and said, "Hey, does April 19th, 1973 mean anything to you?" And her response was, "I've been waiting for your call." And so she, she was in a moment of crisis that you and I will probably never understand, and for her to think about me on my birthday every year, she actually baked a cake on my birthday. Nobody knew why. It was just on that day she would bake me a cake. And the family would eat it, not realizing that she was just celebrating my life, and remembering um, and finding peace in the decision, knowing that I was adopted, and safe.
Where were you left?
I was left at the door of a hospital.
Hmm. And did they find you fairly quickly?
Yes, yeah, they did.
They did.
Of course, to my record, I mean, I don't know for sure. I mean, I can just tell you what I've been told over the years, but the hospital actually is no longer there. So yeah, so my records are in a completely different county, but from what I understand, yes.
Hmm. We recently had a brief story on about a new safe haven baby box being installed in mid-Missouri at a fire department. And it was very brief. We didn't go into much detail. And that's the reason following up is one of our viewers wanted to know what safety protocols are in place to protect the baby. Now, when you do a story in the news and it's 20 seconds, you can't go into many of these details. So the viewer has a follow-up question, and that's why I'm here talking to you right now, is on their behalf to do the follow-up work. So what safety protocols are in place for these baby boxes?
Well, so the state actually, when the law is passed, they set protocols in place. The state of Missouri actually has very strict protocols in place for the locations. So the location actually tests the box once per week for a complete thorough check, and then they do two visual checks a day on that baby box. The alarms that we've added are not connected to each other. So if one alarm was to fail, the other one would pick up. And there's actually three fail-safe alarms on each box. And then they're also heated. They've got a temperature control on the inside, and they also have a power off alarm. And if the box ever loses power, the box actually sends a signal to 911 letting them know that the box at this location has no power. And so the 911 dispatch then contacts the location and says, "Hey, your box is without power." And then they have a protocol to lock that box up and put a do not use sign on the outside of the baby box.
And all of this is in place before there's any training for the people who have the box, if it's at a fire department or a hospital or a medical facility. And it's my understanding it's primarily going to be fire departments and hospitals in the state of Missouri. There are already several boxes in the state.
Yeah, we don't put boxes in anywhere except fire stations and hospitals and an occasional police station if there's no fire stations or hospitals available in the area.
Do you know how many you have in Missouri right now?
I do not. You'd have to look at our website. I would say probably 15 maybe, but I'm not sure. You would have to go to shbb.org and look at that, the map. There's actually a map of Missouri. It'll tell you exactly where all of them are.
And do you know if there are more planned in Missouri, say in Southwest Missouri?
Yes, there's multiple locations that they're working on, in Missouri currently.
Springfield?
I don't know. So I don't get into the contract phase of it. We contract with every location because we want them to follow the protocols, and so they actually sign a legal document stating that they're going to follow the protocols that have been set not only by the state but also our protocols are a little bit more stringent than the states, and so I don't get involved in that so much. That's our legal team because I'm traveling all over the country, speaking at so many locations. So I don't get into the locations as much as I used to. When I first started it, I was doing every job, but now I'm pretty blessed to have somebody that does that for me.
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm trying to break some news and say that we're going to have one in Springfield, or the next location is going to be in Southwest Missouri, exactly where it is. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Oh, gotcha.
Tell me about some success stories. I know some babies have been dropped off in Missouri already.
Mhm. Yeah, we've had more than just the babies in boxes in Missouri. One of the things that people get wrong about us, the naysayers that come out full force, they think that they know what we do and how we do it. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that we're just anybody that calls us, we're saying, "Hey, go to this box," and that's the farthest thing from the truth. We have had 187 handoffs and 77 babies in our boxes. So you can see our big focus is just getting this baby in the arms of someone. And so last year in Missouri that I know of, I mean, I didn't read our stats right now, but last year in Missouri we had 3 infants surrendered in baby boxes and at least 3 handoffs in the state of Missouri. If more, I'm not aware of because I don't answer our hotline, but I do know of some situations where we got heavily involved with the parent on 3 separate occasions and helped them surrender by handing the child to a person at a hospital. And that's important for us because we know that not every case there's going to be a baby box around, and even at the locations where there are baby boxes, we've had handoffs at baby box locations. Woodburn, Indiana had a handoff, and there's a box in their wall. Um, uh, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the um, New Haven, Indiana. They've had a handoff, and there's a box in their wall. So there's multiple locations that have had babies where we got these parents to walk up to the location and hand the child to a person, and
Mm.
that's important.
So, what can you tell me about the moms? Because some people are going to hear this and say, shouldn't an adoption agency, shouldn't a foster agency be handling this instead of kind of this secret safe place?
Well, they are handling it after we get involved. These babies are going straight to them. But we have to meet women where they are. And your viewer needs to understand that not every woman is where they are. I can't answer the phone and tell a woman what to do. That's not my job. My job is to give them options and tell them, there's a hospital you can surrender at, there's an adoption agency in your area. You can do a parenting plan, and we can find resources for you in your area. And then if you can't do any of those, there's a baby box, 5 miles away at this fire station. We're going to give her all her options. And when people, this is what really upsets me is when people say, well, they should have done this, or they should have done that, or I wouldn't have done this, or I wouldn't have done that. Well, this isn't you. This is their decision to make, and they're going to make the best decision for them. And if we don't meet them where they are, we have failed them. We have failed them because if we tell them, you know what, you need to go to an adoption agency, that's just better for you and your baby, uh, she's going to have to live with that decision. And we made the decision for her. And so giving them options is the best decision for them to make because they got to live with the decision for the rest of their lives. And so, whatever decision they make, we have met them where they are. And that really, I think, is where we stand out differently, because a lot of these parents, believe it or not, a lot of these parents, after they surrender in our boxes, contact us. I'm on TikTok. I have 1.3 million followers there. We've got 700,000 followers on, Instagram and Facebook. And it's not because everybody just loves the baby boxes. It's because we're raw and we're real, and we're not going to give any parent information that isn't true or isn't what's best for her. I'm not going to tell every woman to put a baby in a box. That's just that we're just not going to do that, because it's not what's best for her. And so when a viewer says that, they have to question themselves. Is that best? Is that what's best for you? Or is that what is best for a mother that is in a very different spot?
What are some of the situations you've been presented with as you answer calls on that hotline?
Well, I am not a counselor. I'm an ex-firefighter and medic, and so, I have answered it in the early days, when I couldn't pay somebody to answer the calls, and I've always had a counselor, though. The person who actually started this company with me, was actually in South Africa when I kinda dreamt this up, but she is a psychologist, and so at the very beginning, she started answering the phones. Well, the phones became too much for just one person, and so I was the backup. And so there have been times where I have answered the call and I have spoken with these moms, and they appreciate the fact that we're not telling them anything that we can't back up. If we tell you something, we can back it up, and we can make sure that we can help you on whatever situation it was. We've had a person that was married. This is just one of the cases, which I'm sure happens a lot, but somebody that was married, that was separated, that had a child that they wanted to place for adoption, but the state would not allow the adoption to go through unless the man that she was married to, even though it wasn't the child's father, the man that she's married to had to sign the adoption papers. And that just wasn't she just wasn't in a good place with him. And so she contacts us. And so in situations like that, we're just going to give her the information and the options. She's got to make the final decision for herself. Now, was it the right decision what she made? Depends who you ask. Are we asking her? Because I'm sure she would tell you yes. And so that's one of the cases. On Beyond the Box with Monica Kelsey, and this is maybe where you could learn something from a mom or even your viewers. But I have a podcast called Beyond the Box with Monica Kelsey. And I'm not trying to push the podcast. I'm just trying to push episode 9, which is we flew a birth mom to us in Woodburn, Indiana, and she agreed to go on our podcast. We have her to the back. You can't see her face, of course, but she was willing to tell her story to the world. And you really get a sense for how things happened when she talks. And I was easy on her. I'm not going to lie. I was easy on her because I love these moms. I mean, I really just wrap my arms around them. But some of the hard questions was asked in a loving way, and she answered them flawlessly, to her heart, not anybody else's. But you can really learn some of the situations. In her situation, she did, reveal that in episode 9 of Beyond the Box with Monica Kelsey.
Well, give me a little insight, a thumbnail sketch of her situation.
She found out she was pregnant later on, hid it, figured it would go away, which is what we hear a lot from these moms, is they just kind of like decided just to go on with life, thinking, knowing that one day something was going to happen, but just not realizing it was coming soon or whatever. She was kind of the same situation. She gave birth in the middle of the night, and then drove an hour and a half to the closest baby box. And she specifically, this is the part that really kind of got me, and I think it kind of got her as well, because she talks about the orange bag. When people say, well, these parents that utilize the boxes, they don't get any resources. Yeah, they do. They're in the orange bag. And this mom on episode 9, she talks about opening the door and the orange bag falling to her feet. And what she said next was, okay, I guess we're doing this. Because it became real for her in that moment, because she's seen all, and she says she's seen all my TikToks. She's watched all my TikToks. She knew that there was an orange bag there. She knew it was going to fall at her feet. That's what I tell people on social media, on the videos. And for her, it became real when that orange bag hit her feet. And she placed the baby in the box. She shut the door and then went back to her car and watched the ambulance, which is very common. You know, a lot of these moms do sit and watch the ambulance, and it's just kind of like them making sure that the baby was picked up, like because they don't hear anything, everything's silent to them. And so she sat outside, not in the fire department's property, actually across the street, and sat there and waited for the ambulance to leave. And she knew right then that her baby was safe.
Hmm. What is in that orange bag?
There's trafficking information in the orange bag. There's what to look for after giving birth. 95% of these babies that we get are not born in hospitals. And so we want to make sure that mom gets the information that she needs on what to look for because she doesn't have to go to the hospital. This is her right. You know, again, we're meeting women where they are. We're not telling them
Mhm.
you have to go to the hospital. You've got to do it. No, we're meeting them where they are. It's their decision to make whether they want to go into a hospital or not. And so there's what to look for after giving birth. There's also a safe haven registry. So if they want to give information on the ethnicity of this baby, medical information that they think is going to be important for this child when this child is a teenager or an adult, they can leave this. Well, they don't leave let me just be clear. They don't leave anything in the orange bag. In the orange bag, this safe haven registry gives them a code to go to online, which is a HIPAA compliant site that they go to, or they can fill out the form and mail it in. So if they don't want to go to the website, then maybe they feel like somebody's going to track them or something. They can always just fill out the form and then put it in an envelope and mail it off to our headquarters here, and then we'll put it in the database in our database. And so when the adoptive families reach out to us, that goes to them as long as the parent has authorized on this registry form for us to give it to them.
And that is one of the criticisms is if this happens later in life, the person won't know, the baby as they grow up won't know their ethnicity. They can guess. They won't know their medical background. Am I going to have high cholesterol or XYZ? Um, so you're trying to address that.
I'm meeting them where they are. I'm meeting them where they are. They're keeping their child safe by placing their child in this box. If that's the last thing that they can do, I'm
Hmm.
giving them the option to do whatever they can after that baby is safe, and that is the Safe Haven Registry. Now, for me, you know, and this is where anti-adoption people really hate the Safe Haven movement is because of the ethnicity and the medical information. There are anti-adoption people out there that hate the Safe Haven movement, not just the baby boxes, the movement in general, even a woman handing a child to a person at a hospital or a fire station or a police station, whatever, but not getting any medical information. I'm adopted. I'm 52 years old. I've had, you know, some scares. I had cancer last year on my face. The doctors that I have been to have done more tests because I have no idea what my medical information is or my medical background is. They do more tests to find out. And I feel honestly, I feel like that's a little bit of an advantage for me because they're not just pinpointed on one thing that might not be it at all. And so I understand, you know, the concern about ethnicity and medical information. I'm not saying that it's not important at all. I'm just saying if you're dead in a dumpster, who cares what the medical information or your ethnicity is?
And that happens.
It happened 3 times last week. You know, Las Cruces, New Mexico, a baby found in a porta john, dead. Last week in California, baby in a homeless camp behind a uh, dumpster, dead. Yes, it's happening all over this country. And so if you're going to force these women to give their medical information, to give their ethnicity information when they walk into some locations, because some locations, some states require that they give information. Read their safe haven laws. It's true. Even though it says no questions asked, some of the states require you to ask this. Now, if they don't want to give you the answer, that's fine, but they're still going to ask. But if they don't even want to walk in and address that, you know, they're not going to do it. They're not going to walk in. and we're going to find babies in unsafe places again. And so, again, we're meeting women where they are. Is it where you would want to be? Maybe not. Is it where I'd want to be? Maybe not. But it's where they are. And we have to appreciate the fact that they're reaching out to an organization or to do something safe with their child versus not, which is the alternative, is what we've seen 3 times last week.
Now, you're not in charge of what happens after the baby's in the box, but you have a
Yeah.
vested interest in that. So, from your understanding, what is the process after the baby is put in the box and the alarm goes off?
So every baby is given immediate medical care. Again, 95% of our babies are not born in hospitals. We get babies with placenta still attached. We get shoestrings tied on cords. I mean, we have seen almost everything at a fire station or a hospital where these babies are placed. So they're getting immediate medical care on the other side of that box. That's the first thing. Then they're transported to the closest medical facility for evaluation by an actual physician. The physician then deems this child, healthy and can be released to the Department of Child Services or to an adoption agency. Every state in this country has a protocol on who they call when a baby is surrendered. The majority of them, they go into what they call the foster to adopt program. Some states allow for adoption agencies to come and take custody of the infant from the hospital and then place with an immediate adoptive family. So we don't get involved in that process at all. Do I have a vested interest? Of course, my heart wants to know where they're at. That's my vested interest, but not because I need to or because I get anything out of it other than my heart just, I want to know that these babies are safe. I want to know that they go to great families. And 77 times we know that they have, a lot of these families reach out to us, not all of them. We haven't heard from all of them yet. I hope one day that they do reach out to us, but we've probably, I'm going to say probably 55 of the families we have been in contact with. So the majority of them. And it's just nice to see that the program does work.
Well, I hope in this conversation we've covered all the questions that the viewer had in our 20-second story that we didn't answer. What is
Well,
that? What is that number people can call? If
which
they,
for the crisis,
your hotline, yes. What is the
Um,
hotline
it
number?
it's 1-866-99-BABY-1, the number 1, and it's on every one of our baby boxes. So if you see a picture of our baby box, the number's right there on the bottom of it. It's on every billboard, every literature. That is the workhorse of our organization. That is where the rubber meets the road, and that is where we meet these women where they are.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time today.
Well, you're very welcome. Hopefully, your viewer sees the advantage of not just taking a 20-second clip and wondering about all of these things, because the program really does work. And it's is it ideal in 2026? No, but neither is the safe haven movement. Neither is foster care. There's so many things that I wish we could get rid of, but this isn't a perfect world.
All right, Monica, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. You have a great day.